Since its establishment 66 years ago, the National Theatre Company of Korea has been carrying on the legacy of Korean theatre and at the same time opening new horizons with creative contemporary works. The theatre company is currently headed by Yun-cheol as its artistic director. After having spent around 30 years analysing and shedding light on international theatre trends, the former theatre critic is now offering his unique expertise to push Korean theatre up to a whole new level.
My job is to produce good theatre. I'm personally only happy when I see a good show. I want to make my people, make my audience feel the same experience.
Stay tuned to meet Yun-cheol, who is envisioning the National Theatre Company of Korea as a theatre company that communicates with the global audiences and hear about his journey in the world of theatre as well as his dreams.
Hello and welcome to the Innerview. I'm your host, Pei Soo Jung. Now this year marks the 400th anniversary of the death of William Shakespeare, whose works still remain highly relevant today and show the timelessness of theatre. We'll be exploring the beauty and the power of theatre with my guest today, Kim Yun-cheol, who is the artistic director of the National Theatre Company of Korea. Hello and welcome to the Innerview. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you. I know you're an extremely busy man, so thank you for joining us out of your very hectic schedule, I'm sure. So the National Theatre Company of Korea, or NTC Korea for short, it's considered the top national player in Korea in the field of theatre and performing arts. And you're already halfway through your tenure there as artistic director. How is it going? How do you feel? And is it going as you initially planned?
Yes, I think so. I have many achievements.
Yeah.
And also I have a lot to achieve. So I'm still very busy in completing my mission. I was appointed for a 3-year term, and I'm now in 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
So 6 more months to accomplish my mission here.
Okay.
Okay.
And you've enjoyed a very long career as a theatre critic,
Right.
over 40 years, I believe, during which you've won a number of awards, both at home and abroad, on top of which you were the first Asian to head the International Association of Theatre Critics, as well as serving on the judging panel for the Europe Theatre Prize.
Yes.
That's quite a resume, really.
Yeah.
So that means you must have seen countless theatre productions. Do you happen to have a number of how many you've seen?
On average, I usually see 150 shows in a year.
Wow, so that's 3 a week, roughly.
Yes.
Wow.
And among which 50, 1/3 of the whole productions I see are those I see in a foreign country.
Okay. So you do a lot of traveling.
Mostly in Europe, because my association is based in Paris,
Okay.
France, and I usually visit European countries to preside over my meetings about 10 times in a year.
Wow.
So.
And are there any performances that have been particularly memorable for you?
Quite a few. But the truth is, it's getting more and more difficult to find good shows nowadays.
Right.
But about 10 years ago, I think was the prime time for world theatre. At that time, I saw Anton Chekhov's Uncle Vanya, directed by Belgian director Luc Seagull, which was done in makeshift theatre without any scenery.
Right.
Only the actors playing those deep characters with such a modern and contemporary theatre aesthetics. That was so touching. I wrote a long review of the show for the Korean Theatre Journal during the intermission.
Right.
It was so vivid. Still, I remember every second, every minute of the 3-hour show.
That's amazing.
Wonderful. And there's very deep in characterization, very modern in its production aesthetics. and very communicative with the audience.
Right.
And the actors were so super. And I still remember it as my best experience in
Wow,
theatre.
and that wasn't even a production that had very complicated production or scenery.
No.
It was just about you, about the cast and the
no
audience.
scenery at all, just actors sitting on the floor, sitting on the
Right.
stage, and they deliver their character.
And as an international critic, you travel the world, you see a lot of the international trends
Sure.
in theatre. How has that influenced you and your work and your views?
I think mostly I have been visiting the Western theatre, mostly in Europe, and the big difference is that they approach theatre very realistically.
Okay,
We very abstractly. So
interesting.
their theatre has more, social relevance than ours. And theatre is a very directed communication art. You have to face the live, living audience in the same, space. So if you fail to communicate with them at that moment, the theatre cannot be successful. So without that direct social and relationship with the audience, theatre cannot be very functional. And I think I have learned a lot about how to approach theatre realistically, how to make theatre more relevant. That is the greatest, asset I got from my experience in Western theatre.
Right.
Yeah.
And during your travels and your work, you must have had quite a bit of experience with the national theatres of various countries around the world. So I've been to the National Theatre in Korea and the one in the UK in London, which is where I'm from. And they are both such awe-inspiring experiences. They're so grand. The buildings are very grand, first of all, the theatres themselves, and of course the calibre of the casts that get to perform there. But what about you? Are there any national theatres that have been particularly memorable to you?
I think the national theatre that inspired me mostly is the Latvian National Theatre.
Interesting.
Nobody knows about Latvian theatre,
Indeed.
but I was invited to Latvian theatre for quite a few times. There is a very, very talented and genius director whose name is Alvis Armanis, who is leading the Young National Theatre. They have been working together for their lives, for their life. And the way they create a theatre is a collective writing. All the actors together with the director are collecting data for writing, plays, and they make this dramatic structure together.
Right.
And finally, they put out a very, very interesting and inspiring show, mostly on the identity of the Latvian people. So they're always struggling to discover their national, identity. And they have done it in such a communicative and efficient and effective way. I was so surprised, particularly when Alvis Hermanis put out a show which was called Long Life.
Okay.
It was about the old people who had lived during the Soviet era and who got very old. They are kind of constrained in their apartment without their ability to move out. It was a non-verbal show. It lasted for 1.5 hours, and it's so beautiful and so minutely realistic, and people just loved it, and I loved it too. And this is one of my second most important experience in the theatre.
Okay, so Latvia is on your
Latvian
list
theatre,
of places to go for theatre, interestingly.
Yeah.
Now, the appointment of yourself being a theatre critic as the artistic director of the NTC Korea, it caused quite a buzz in the field. It was an unexpected appointment, shall we say.
Right.
Did that add quite a lot of pressure to you, wanting to successfully lead the company?
Of course. I was the harshest critic about National Theatre of Korea before. As a critic, I was very critical about it, and now they want me to lead it. In the beginning, I kind of, rejected the idea because, mostly in Korea, the artistic director is a stage director's job, not a critic's job. And this is the first time that they ever appoint the critic to be the director of the National Theater.
Indeed.
And as I expected, there are a lot of protests from the directors, mostly, and actors. But at the time, I was already appointed, and so I just took that protest as a kind of stimulus for me to work harder and to prove that critic can be artistic director.
And you've done a fantastically successful job.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Proven all your critics wrong. So it seems that the National Theatre Company of Korea then, considered the symbol of Korean theatre and performing arts, is writing a new chapter under your leadership. Now, I'm sure our viewers are very curious about the company as well. So let's watch a short video clip giving us a glimpse into the past and present of the National Theatre Company of Korea.
당신 멋있네요.
고맙습니다. 전에 무슨 일 하셨어요?
무용주였어요.
그래요?
제가 이제 연극을 시작한 거는 58년도부터인데, 1958년도부터인데 항상 그때 이제 국립극장이 여기가 저의 목표죠. 가슴속에 꼭 박혀있던 이 국립극장 무대를 섰다는 것만으로도 아주 굉장한 자부심이었죠. 그때는 이제 손님도 그렇게 많지는 않았어요. 많은 작품들을 제가 많이 했죠. 그러니까.
The National Theatre Company of Korea, launched in 1950, has played a key role in the history of Korean theatre. With the former Myeongdong Theater as their home, NCT Korea carried on the legacy of Korean theatre and contributed to the cultural refinement of the people through theatre and performing arts. NTC Korea communicated with their audiences based on the theme of introspection in 2014, liberation and confinement in 2015, and now they are undertaking new challenges in 2016. Today they are fast becoming a global theatre company together with the newly restored Myeongdong Theater.
I continue to try to achieve what I have conceived about the direction of the company. And the one direction is the actor-centered, actor-oriented theater. The second piece was narrative, text-oriented theater. And the third, the new aesthetics. And one of the most important mission for the company I have chosen is the competitiveness, international competitiveness, so that we can stand along with the very important national theatres.
So let's talk about what the National Theatre Company of Korea is up to these days. Now, you set out one of the missions for the year 2016 to be to undertake new challenges. What did you mean by that, and can you give us specific
Usually,
examples?
national theatre means to be very conservative.
Okay.
And the conservative approach to theatre is not very modern. So it can easily lose the interest of the theatre people in general. So what I want to achieve is to create new audience, And in order to do that, I want to bring a lot of young people who are mostly used to the new way of communication.
Okay.
And so what I'm trying to do is to put some new contemporary production aesthetics, which is quite different from conventional theatre. But also I want to restore the importance of narrative, the importance of actors. So these three combined together, I think it's a great challenge for us, which we have never done that before. And so that we can we want to create a new theater which can communicate with people, which can deliver a very moving story in a contemporary way.
Right.
So
you want to reach to all the different generations, basically.
Yes. That's the way the theater should be. That's what the theater should be.
Right. And I'm interested to hear about your insight on how we can globalize Korean theatre, because in a past interview you said that the biggest problem in Korean theatre is that there isn't a persisting repertoire. So as the artistic director of the NTC Korea, what are you doing to try and change this?
The greatest obstacle to have permanent repertoire is that we didn't have any ensemble members. So every time we should cast people from different groups, and when good actors were available, we are successful in producing good theater shows. But without permanent member, we cannot create that kind of system.
Right, so it's very dependent upon the actors.
Yes, so that's why I created this ensemble of 20 actors, mostly in the 30s and 40s, and they kind of support our, production.
Right.
And that's why I created that, and I think that helped me a lot to achieve one of my goals. And secondly, I am expanding the exchange with foreign, mostly European directors. We are doing a lot of foreign plays. Almost 50% of repertoires are foreign plays, mostly European and some American. And the way Korean directors approach to Western context is quite different from Europeans approaching their own classic. So if I invite European directors who will direct my companies, there will be some middle ground between them.
Right.
And I want to create that link that connects East and West, maybe Korea and Europe, Korea and Europe. That way we can produce a theater which is both local and also universal.
Right.
In that way, I want to promote the internationality of my company. And we have already invited to Europe and to China, to Asia, so we'll continue to do that.
Okay, so talking about these foreign plays then, you said 50% of the plays you put on right now are foreign. You have staged the Seagull by Anton Chekhov, you mentioned that earlier, and it was completely sold out during its run last year. And the same for the Crucible by Arthur Miller, which I believe you translated yourself, which is amazing too. Is there anything you place particular emphasis on when staging foreign plays?
When I select a play to produce, the first consideration is about the play's social relevance.
Okay, to the Korean society?
The Korean society, of course. And also, what kind of play does Korean society require? That's my first criteria when I select the play. And the Crucible is the one which calls for the social justice.
Right.
And when I select that play, I want to bring social justice to general public's consciousness. And I think the play was sold out in advance, 2 weeks before the show started, it was sold out, and I was so surprised. And it was in December, a kind of, celebrating festive month, and with this dark and tragic story.
Right.
I was quite touched, and I was so happy that my people need this kind of theater, and they responded to my call. Before, among Arthur Miller's plays, Death of a Salesman was the most popular one in the world, around the world. And nowadays, his Crucible is the most popular one, not only in Korea, but around the world.
Right.
It was revived, even in London, even in New York, everywhere they play rather, the Crucible than Death of a Salesman nowadays.
Very fascinating indeed. And you're currently putting on another contemporary play by the French playwright Florian Zeller called Lepere, which has never been performed in Korea before.
Yes, neither in Korea nor in Asia at all.
So the Innerview crew went to check out Lepere by Florian Zeller. Let's check out the footage.
We went behind the scenes at one of the rehearsals for the premiere of a French play, Lepere, in Korea. There was someone who seemed just as observed as the cast, and it was artistic director Yun-cheol.
정원아, 간호사로 나오는 장면 있잖아. 거기서 가장 중요한 건 이렇게 딱 엄격한 거거든. 규칙을 얘기하는 그런 사람의 입장에서 이 환자를 앙뢰를 다룰 때는 몸도 좀 그랬으면 좋겠어. 이리고 가지 말고, 구부리지 말고. 캐릭터가 자꾸 잠깐 순간적으로 좀 무너져요.
감독님은 연극을 일단 굉장히 사랑하는 분이세요. 그리고 한국 연극의 발전에 대해서 되게 사명을 가지고 계시다는 게 되게 느껴져요. 여러 형태의 것들을 많이 제시하려고 노력하시고 그리고 굉장히 발전을 도모하고 계시다는 생각이 들어요.
객관적인 시선으로 냉철하게 판단해서 그거를 심도 있게 말씀을 잘 해주세요. 작품에 대한 어떤 이해도가 우리보다 훨씬 높으시기 때문에 그런 부분에 대해서 저희가 굉장히 큰 도움을 받는 부분들이 많이 있어요.
The artistic director has set a new direction for NTC's Korea, and it is to be an actor-oriented theatre company. This is why he never forgets to speak to the cast before every rehearsal and performance.
이미 뭐 평이 굉장히 좋아요. 응? 유지를 하되 맨날 조금씩 더 발전시킨다는 그런 마음가짐으로 임해주시면 좋을 것 같습니다.
아버지 화이팅!
오냐.
There is a young French playwright who has been garnering attention with his experimental works.
누가? 아빠, 더 이상 이런 식으로 하면 안 돼.
내 시계를 훔쳤다고?
아빠 시계를
그렇다니까.
혹시 아빠가 잃어버린 거 아닐까?
기억이 안 나. 시설로 모셔야지.
요양원.
그래, 요양원 말이야. 그게 아버지한테 훨씬 좋을 거야. 환자야, 안녕. 아버님은 환자라고. 아니, 우리 엄마한테 보내줘요. 우리 엄마 불러줘요. 여기서 나오고 싶어. 누가 날 좀 데려가세요. 내가 당신은 무슨 일이 일어나고 있는지 알아요? 이 집에서 벌어지는 일들 어떻게 생각해야 할지 이제는 모르겠어요.
먹먹한 마음이 들었고요. 그리고 저희 부모님이 많이 생각나서 되게 감동적이면서 슬펐던 공연이었던 것 같아요.
우리 부모님 세대 이야기 또 앞으로 우리가 당면할 문제인 것 같아서 굉장히 좀 심도 있는 작품이 아니었나 생각합니다. 프랑스 작가의 작품임에도 불구하고 우리가 같이 공감할 수 있는 그런 작품이었어요.
And in addition to staging a French play in Korea, you also introduced a Korean play to French audiences, The Empire of Light. How did this joint Korean-French production come to be about?
This year, I think, is the anniversary, 130th anniversary of diplomatic relation between France and Korea.
Indeed.
And both countries have agreed to have collaborations in terms of culture and art. We decided to invite Anton, the French director, to direct Korean story, which is an adaptation from the novel by Kim Young-ha and adapted by French playwright. They did it here. It's a story about North Korean spies, working in Korea and who were, kind of forgotten by the North Korean regime. It's a very sad story, very heavy story for Koreans, And these French artists were very interested in bringing this story into France.
Right.
starting here in Seoul in March, and then we went to the Orléans, France, in May. And the directing of the show was so French. It was better liked there than over here.
Really?
In Orléans, all the full house audiences were giving us standing ovation for 10 minutes, and it was very controversial over there too.
Right.
So we are very happy, both of us, French colleagues and ourselves are very happy in Orléans, and I think they will continue to invite it to other cities of France.
Okay, so The Empire of Light had a really, really great response during its production in France. And last year, the NTC Korea received accolades for The Orphan of Joe, The Seed of Vengeance, which I believe is an adaptation of a Chinese play originally, The Orphan of Zhao. And I believe you're planning to produce that in its original birthplace, China, as well.
Yes, we are invited to China in Beijing at the National Dramatic Center.
Right.
And it will be at the end of October. We'll be playing there, and we already have other invitations from other cities of China.
Wow.
So we'll be touring in China quite a lot, And this particular play was one of the most classic and most popular Chinese classics. And my director, Mr. Ko Sun-woong, adapted it to meet the Korean sentiment.
Right.
He put a lot of motherly love, motherly anger to this kind of Chinese classic work. The grandmother didn't appear at all in the Chinese, text.
Oh,
He created the new mother, who is very Korean.
I see.
Put a lot of Korean sentiment in her love for the lost child.
So it tugs at the heartstrings.
And I invited many, Chinese, the cultural people to Myeongdong Theater, and we didn't offer any subtitles. They just know the story by heart. And they're sitting behind me in a row, full of 10 people, and they cried throughout the play. And they wrote a very, very great, raves about the show, and it is invited. It is being invited, and it will continue to be invited.
So, is there an added pressure in performing it in its origin, China?
It's not a pressure; it's a challenge.
Okay,
it's a challenge. We do this play in our own way. We don't do this to satisfy Chinese audience.
Right.
And they are so touched by our approach. So that's why you go there.
Okay, so there are so many ways that you're striving to improve, Korea's standing in the international stage of theatre. And one of the ways you're doing this also is to provide foreign language subtitles at your plays. That's such a great idea.
Yes, we offer English subtitles on Thursdays and Sundays at Myeongdong Theater, which is our main venue. So every Thursday and Sunday, the foreign spectators can come and enjoy the show.
And is that your own idea?
Yes.
That's such a great idea, and I think it will open up, audience numbers by huge, huge amounts.
But I want to do it every day, but it costs so much. So at the moment, just 2 days in a week.
Okay.
We do.
All right, so Thursdays and Sundays.
Sundays,
I see. I'll make sure I get to Myeongdong Theater on those days. So talking to you today, I can really see and feel the passion that you have for theatre. So I have to ask, how did you come to walk down this path? Because I've heard that you actually wanted to be a stage actor initially. So how did you end up deciding to go into the world of theatre criticism?
Yeah, acting was my life dream when I was a high school boy. So I began to dream to become an actor when I was very young. And I continued to act for theatre until I was 26.
Okay.
And I was playing Hamlet myself.
Oh, wow.
It was 6 months rehearsal and just 1 week performance at the time at Myeongdong Theater.
Wow, that's a huge role and a huge theatre.
And I played Hamlet, but after the show, I had to have an operation on my voicing organ.
Oh no.
So I couldn't project after that.
I see.
So I had to quit acting. That's why I turned to studying. I didn't want to leave theater at all, and the only thing I can do was to study, and I don't regret.
Was it very difficult leaving acting behind?
Very, very. I used to be a very good actor.
I mean, to secure the role of Hamlet is an amazing feat.
Chosen to be the most promising actor when I was 24. But after that, this kind of operation was a kind of obstacle for me to continue.
Right. And you have this very kind of charisma about you, which, and it doesn't surprise me at all that, your first love is acting. So as a prominent international theatre critic then, you see the trends in international theatre. What would you say the current trends or changes in theatre are in Eastern and Western theatre right now?
In Western theatre, the theatre has been in kind of crisis or in chaos.
Why is that?
After the controversial 60s. We call that post-modern theatre or post-dramatic theatre, in which we kind of, rejected the idea of the importance of actor, the importance of the narrative. So everything conventional was destroyed. In that way, we lost a lot of audience. Now, even in Western theatre, they are beginning to restore the importance of the narrative, the importance of the acting. So we are kind of trying to find a middle ground between the conventional theatre and unconventional theatre. I think that's the main trend of today's international theatre.
And you also served as the president of the International Association of Theatre Critics for 3 consecutive terms.
Yes.
Quite a long time. What was your most rewarding experience while you were doing that?
I was always, feel very, very anxious to visit the Western theatre myself and experience their theatre in person. That's why I went to the United States to study theatre. And that dream came true with my participation in this, International Association of Theatre Critics. And the association is mostly European organization.
Right.
Before me, there are 11 presidents. It was founded in 1956, and before me, 11 presidents served it, all Europeans.
Right.
I was the first non-European, first Asian, president. It was quite stressful in the beginning, because I wanted to change the character or the nature of the organization from tourist group to really working group. I suggested to create an internet theater journal, which is called Critical Stages.
Okay.
Everybody opposed the idea because it meant another work, another workload. And I said, I'll do everything, just approve the idea. And they said, in that case, yes, you can do it. And I recruit people from all around the world, the very big scholars from every corner of the world. And to my surprise, nobody rejected my invitation.
Wow.
And so I succeeded in recruiting 14 great big shots in theater studies, and they worked with me to create this new journal, which is most international at the moment.
Right.
So if you want to know the world theater of the moment, you can visit us, and there you can find performance reviews, and essays, and issues, everything there,
so
and even interviews with the artist. It's called Critical Stage.
So that's kind of your legacy as the president of the International Association.
I'm very proud of that. I'm still working as a part of the editors.
Right. That's absolutely amazing. So we've been talking about theatre for a while now, but what does theatre mean to you personally in your life?
My wife always complained about that I know nothing other than theatre. So she respects my idea of theatre, but she doesn't even listen to me about anything else. So to looking back to my life, I think theatre was my life. Theatre was the highest value in my life. Theatre was kind of constitution in my life, and theatre has been raison d'être for me. Yeah, it's everything.
It's very interesting that you described it as your constitution. So it basically directed everything that you have done up until now. That's absolutely amazing. So I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who, have a passion for theatre, such as yourselves, who want to become a critic or, want to act on stage or behind the scenes. To those people and any of the viewers that you might have inspired today to undertake new challenges, what would be your advice?
I think theatre is a work you can do only with passion. It doesn't make you rich. You cannot make a living from doing theatre only. You have to do other things to make your living.
Right.
Like television or cinema or etc. And in my ensemble, one of the actors told me that he had been doing more than 20 jobs to continue to be able to work as an actor.
Wow, so you really have to love it.
Yes, so without passion you can do it, you can't do it. So if you're really determined to pursue the theatrical life, you should re-examine yourself about the strength of your passion first. It's a job only to be achieved with your passion, with your sacrifice. But great joy, great enjoy. The great joy can be possible if you have passion. That joy could be maybe equivalent to a competent breadwinner.
So it has to be something you really want to throw yourself into, and if you're willing to make sacrifices, then it's for you. So we've heard about a lot of the past chapters in your life. I'm very curious as to what's in your future. What are your next steps?
I can say that I'm only happy when I see a good show. And I have been, very prestiged to witness quite a few good shows myself for the past 30 years. And I want to share those happiness with my general, public. And I want to write a book on my experience. When theater has made me happy. I am thinking about 20 shows, to write about.
Wow.
And I'll write that book after I retire from this job. And that's my, I think, last mission for the society. And I don't want to keep this happiness to myself. I want to share with my people, with the other people in the country.
That's a great sentiment. Well, we very much look forward to that book. It's been an absolute inspiration to have you on the show today. It's been a pleasure delving into the world of theatre with you. I learned so much, so thank you very, very much. And it's also really made me want to go see a show this summer. So lastly, can you recommend a great show for this summer?
I think the only show which is available at the moment is The Mother and the Father of My Company, which will continue to play until the 15th of August. So why not? Please come to the theater. You will enjoy the most important shows, 2 shows in the world at the moment. I want you to make happy. I was very happy when I saw these 2 shows myself, and I think it'll be the case with you too. So I will try and increase my happiness this summer by watching those 2 shows. Yun-cheol, Artistic Director of the National Theatre Company of Korea, thank you so much again for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.